So, I figured why not? It's time to try and finally identify this Confederate stamp. Now, some of you probably know, others may not. I found this thing in this little stock book here. He said he thought it was a 10A and that it was worth $5,000. You know what else I find interesting? Since I just researched this, and I'm pretty confident I know what it is now, I'm noticing here that he put a little note. Milky blue, okay, but with frame line. So I believe that that's where he's mistaken. Here, that's a pretty big factor when identifying this stamp. So if it did have a frame line, which, there you go, here's a pretty good look at it, guys. I mean, do you see a frame line around the design? I don't. I don't see any frame line. It's very clear in the Scott catalog that it's a nice crisp frame line around the stamp, and I just don't see any there. So that was just a straight up mistake. There is no frame line on that stamp. Milky blue, that may be, but yeah, definitely not a 10A. So let me put this back in there. Okay. So, I decided it's been a while and that I should probably pull out my microscope because there's going to be a few minor details that we'll have to look at here to confidently identify this guy. And I will tell you already, I did it earlier today, so I kind of forgot. I think it's number 12. Anyway, we're going to find out together regardless. And so there's the Scott catalog that lists the different variations. Now I'm using the Scott Specialized catalog, and that probably would work well enough, but I ended up just hopped on Google and I was like, Confederate stamp identifier or something like that is what I Googled, and it took me to a great website that I'll share with you, which helps you determine, is it I forget what it said, an 11A or a number 11A or a 12B. I guess that they're incredibly similar with just minor differences, and it's hard to tell, and people often confuse them. So anyways, using this website ended up being really easy to figure out what this was. Okay, so here we are in the catalog. We're in the Confederate States of America, General Issues. This right here is the first design that looks like ours. But there's one major difference. You'll see here it's spelled out the word 10 instead of ours has a numeric 10. So we can go ahead and eliminate this. It is not an A6. So as we move down to the next column, or over to the next column, and move down, we find the first one that has the same numeric 10 cents that we have on ours. But this is the one with our frame line. That's exactly what we were looking for to determine, is it what our former owner of the stamp thought it was, a 10. He thought it was a 10A, which would be this milky blue. And were it to be mint, then it would have had about a $5,000 value. So I can see where he went there, where he got that from, but ultimately we don't have a frame line. And if you'll look at this picture, you'll notice the frame line should be evident on our stamp. We have enough margins around the design of the stamp that you can tell how close that frame line is. We should be seeing it on our stamp. Also, I have already read the notes under these stamps, and I guess what they're looking for, it says it right here, is that they want at least 3 of the 4 sides to show parts of the lines. And then, if you can get a used one that has 4 complete lines, it sells for 400 to 500% of the values given, and that's a used stamp. Well, anyways, we don't have frame lines, so it's not a 10, no matter what. We just don't have them. So we'll move on to the next in line here with our next possibility is this guy. Let me see, hold on, sorry. That'll be number 11 here is this design. So it's a no frame line, 10 cents, and they're calling this one die A. So this is pretty much what our stamp looks like, and this is, I guess, where people often mix up these two stamps. Here's our design, and then take a look at the next design for number 12. Actually, I can probably fit them both. There you go. Get rid of that even. Yeah, so they look incredibly similar. I mean, they both say the Confederate States of America. They have 10 cents, just like that. They have all the same ornaments and whatnot. So very close, and this is what they're calling die B on this A8. So we've got our A7 and A8 designs, die A or die B. So this is what needs to be determined, is which one of these is it? Well, that's when I would turn to this. I found this website here, trishkaufman.com. I believe that she's like a famous Confederate stamp lover lady. I don't know, whatever. She's big on Confederate stamps. So anyway, there's this website here that's pretty much a tool that was somebody put together. I'm not sure who, but pulls some information from a former catalog and helps you determine which of the two you have, a CSA 11 or a CSA 12, right? So, anyways, they start off here with the easiest way to tell the difference between the two types is the hairline on the neck. So, the hairline on type 1, which would be a number 11, extends below the level of the ear. You can see here, it definitely is below the ear. That's the hairline on his back of his neck. And then they go on to say, if the back of the neck is free of hair below the ear, you have a CSA 12. Well, you can tell the hairline is pretty much in line with the ear. So that is a pretty obvious and clear indicator, and there isn't really anything else that you would need to do beyond that. You can just verify where's the hairline. But we'll take a look at the other things, because there was one of these tips, I think at the very bottom of the page, that was an absolute dead giveaway. The hairline is, but yeah, I'll show you later as when we get there. So anyways, here is another one. It is a gash in the N. Kind of a vertical, what do they say? The plate had a small bit of damage, and there's like a vertical blank line right above the N. So you can tell type 1 versus 2. Type 1 has this vertical blank gash, and type 2 does not. So we'll take a look at that. Let's see the next ones. Okay, that the N in the word Confederate, I guess it wasn't well enough connected at the top, and therefore it actually would look like a U instead of an N. Okay, well that one I already checked earlier, and I wasn't like 100% on that, but I'm pretty sure, I know it's a number 12, but when I was looking at it, I'm pretty sure that our N is connected, so we'll take a look at that as well. Next thing to check will be extra projections. Okay, it says the lower left corner of the design ornaments differ in several ways, that the lower portion is much more open on type 1 than it is on type 2. It says also the heavy shading line in the lower ornament is longer and less vertical in type 1 than type 2. See the lower highlighted oval in the images below. So they have a nice little comparison here. This may look small. Won't let me zoom. But so this is one that I didn't even get into. Honestly, you don't have to check every single one of these. I'm explaining this, but I'm not going to bother with this one. This one was unnecessary. But here's just another differentiator, another difference you can use. Open and shut case. Okay, this one I did check, and this one was like a clear indicator as well. So this next tip that they say is that the upper left corner of the design also holds some very good diagnostic material. The elaboration of the corner ornaments on type 1 is very restrained in comparison to the type 2. says here that some copies of Type 2 show a faint line that totally encircles the design while conforming to the outer contours of it. You can't tell very well in this little picture they have, but there is a very faint blue line outlining the entire design. Okay? And that was the one that was like the absolute dead giveaway for me when I saw that, because they give an explanation that says it is never present on Type 1. So if you have this faint blue line outlining the design on the upper left corner, it's a Type 2. And that's a done deal. Just the same as the beard, or the neckline, the hairline on the neck. Alright, sorry. So, anyways, we're going to take a look at these. I didn't really get into whatever this last bit was about perforated issues, but I don't care. My only goal here was simply to identify the stamp. So, let's start by looking at, under the microscope, the hairline here, and then we'll move on to the next ones and see what we can find. Okie dokie. So, let's take a look at the hairline at the base of the neck here. Now, I would say that just from this alone, we should probably be able to say, yeah, it's a Type 2, or die 2, which would make it a number 12, because, excuse me, you can see here, clearly, the hairline at the back of the neck is pretty well in line with the ear. And don't forget, we're under a microscope here, so, to the naked eye, yeah, it looks almost even. So, boom, that should actually be all that you would need, but just for fun, let's go through some of the other ones. Okay, so next, actually, really quick, I kind of skipped over this. Apparently another way to tell is that the beard on the chin will have a kind of obvious tuft of hair right at the front. And to be frank with you, when I look at this, it almost does look like it has a tuft of hair. So I didn't like going by that, but you see right at the tip of my tongs, that kind of very front tuft of his beard. Well, to me, it isn't as pronounced as a Type 1, at least from the image I'm seeing on this website. So, yeah, it kind of looks like there is a very front tuft of hair on this, but it's not. There'd be a much bolder line separating this front tuft, and it would kind of be obvious that it is kind of sticking out more. It really is. It does look different. So, anyway, bottom line, what I'm seeing here, it looks like a Type 2. Looks like a number 12. But I still sort of see what looks like a tuft of hair, so I didn't like going by that one. That was just another thing that they did mention. But the next, besides the hairline on the back of the neck, but otherwise, the next hint was a gash above the N. Let me move that in the center. In sense. And this gash, sorry, this gash would, it would be cutting through this oval line here, right above the N. We would have a blank vertical gash right above this N. Well, clearly you can see everything's there. It looks pretty good. I don't see any blank spots in this design whatsoever. So there's one more indicator that it's probably a number 12. Now let's move on. Okay, so this whole, that the N in Confederate kind of looks like a U. Okay, so here we are, the Confederate right there, it says. So looking at this, and this is very minor stuff, but there's our N right at the tip of my tongs, right? So at the top, they do look like they're bridged together. Like, I do see it connected at the top. So, actually, as I look at this under the microscope, I'm more confident than ever with this specific tip that it does look like an N. I was using my Carson Lumi loop earlier, and I almost couldn't tell. It kind of did look like a U as well. But under this microscope, which I gotta say I should probably use more, it seems pretty blatantly obvious that the bottom is not connected and the top is. I don't see anything connecting the bottom, and I clearly see the top connected, so it looks like an N to me. So there we go. Let's see here. Okay, the next tip. I'm skipping over one of the tips, like I mentioned. I just didn't care for it. I didn't want to deal with it, frankly. But this next one was pretty much enough for me. I mean, I already knew I have a 12 at this point, just off the hairline and the beard and the other tips too. But then this one, I could see clearly with the Carson Lumi Loop, and you can see it even better with this microscope. But take a look at our design here, and you can see outside of the design is a very faint blue line outlining the design. That's exactly what they were talking about. And they said very plainly that is not on number 11. And also, they did mention not every single number 12 will have this faint blue line bordering the design. But if you do have it, then you have no doubt it's a number 12. So I thought that was a really good one to showcase this microscope. I mean, yes, I saw it with the Carson Lumi Loop. Yes, I would see it with a magnifying glass. But, if you have a microscope, heck, this is the perfect kind of thing to use it for. Like seeing it here in HD in a big screen in front of my face. I mean, there's just no doubt you can see that faint blue line. And I just thought that was great. So with confidence, I can now say that our guy here is a number 12. And I don't think anybody would debate that, quite frankly. So that was it. Piece of cake, really. That wasn't even hard. I'm going to put a link in the description of this video to that website in case anybody else has their own 10-cent stamp that they need to decipher which one it is, either 11 or 12. I expected this to be a whole lot harder. I'm not going to lie to you. I've actually had this thing sitting in this stock card on my desk for, I'm pretty sure it's been a couple of months at this point. I keep peeking at it out of the corner of my eye, and just kind of have been avoiding it because, these old stamps, sometimes you really got to tighten your bootstraps because you might be in for an awful lot of work to figure them out. Well, this one, surprisingly easy. So the nice thing about this is now I can just add this to my Confederate States collection. However, the final thought that I kind of want to add about this is right at the beginning of the Confederate section in the Scott catalog. I did some reading, and apparently they have an issue with counterfeits when it comes to Confederate stamps. So better to be safe than sorry. I probably should send this out and get it expertized. But I am not actually going to bother. I don't want to spend the money. I'm not going to lie. I just don't want to spend the money right now. But that's okay. Maybe later. I'm going to go ahead and assume and hope that it is, in fact, a legitimate stamp. It looks like it, but, how am I supposed to know? There was, I think I read some kind of chemical. You can drop a drop of this chemical on there, and it'll help you tell if it's real or not. Something like that. I don't know. I'm not really big into forgeries yet in my stamp collecting career, so I really don't know a whole lot. I just would hope it's real, just like any other collector, but... just so you guys know, number 12 was from 1863 to 4. It can be on thick or thin paper. It's engraved. And it is blue. It goes for 22 mint and $25 used. So, sorry to burst my own bubble. It isn't a $5,000 stamp. It is a $25 stamp. And then if I were to nitpick even more, it has the corner nicked off, and it's got a little slit there, and the margins, I don't know, it looks like top margin could be better. There's some flaws, right? I don't even think I've looked at the back. Oh, it's okay, it's been hinged, it has writing. Okay, so not the best shape ever. So what this is probably like a $2 to $5 stamp or something like that, right? I mean, okay. In reality, not not great. Not going to retire off of this guy, but boy, is it cool. I love this time period. Love the history. It's all fascinating. It's always just like any other stamp, an old stamp at least. I find it fascinating just that it traveled all the way through time to be here in my collection, and I always love them. They're just awesome. So, anyways, that was it, guys. I hope this might help somebody out there. That webpage just ended up being perfect. You know, sometimes I find on the internet these different identifier tools, and you may be familiar with 1847USA.com. That's a fantastic website for identifying older stamps. They've got a visual identifier, and then they've got just other tools to identify stamps. So, ever since I found that website, I've become aware that there are specific, private individual websites, whatever, out there that people have bothered to put together steps and tips to help identify difficult issues. So, not just with these Confederate stamps, but I would recommend, frankly, as a collector in the new age of 2025, if you have trouble identifying a stamp, or you have a trouble stamp that's just always difficult to figure out which variation you have, anything like that, it's worthwhile to Google an identifier tool for that stamp. That's what brought me to this web page. I could have dicked around in the Scott catalog and tried to figure all this out with their hints and all that, but we all know that the descriptions and stuff in the catalogs aren't the best. Honestly, I can find them irritating sometimes. It's painful sometimes, almost. So if you can find whatever stamp issues you're looking at, if you can find an identifier tool, then good on you. That's probably going to make it a whole lot easier. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. Just keep that in mind when you're trying to decipher what stamp you have. If it's a difficult issue, odds are other people have had the same problems, and somebody may have very well been kind enough and taken the time to make a webpage dedicated to giving you tips to help figure out which stamp you have. So Google that stuff. Don't be afraid to use Google. It's an amazing tool. Anyways, that does it for this little short episode. Thanks, guys. I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.